Hi, everybody. My name is Tamar Finkelstein-Owens, and I'm a member of Congregation B'nai Jeshurun. I am recording a video of me making Sufganiyot for Chanukah. This is my first time recording a video, so bear with me, and my recording assistant will be down shortly, so I'm just starting without her. That's my daughter, Jordan. I'm going to start with just showing you my ingredients, and hopefully Dan Glassman, our video telecommunications guru at CBJ, will be putting up a link to the recipe. The recipe I used is right here. I downloaded it. It is not a family recipe. My family was not big on Sufganiyot. This is a recipe for Sufganiyot, which are jelly donuts. It is a recipe for Sufganiyot that I downloaded from food.com. And you just Google Sufganiyot and food.com. You will come up with a recipe from Broken Burner. And that is the recipe I used. And here are my ingredients. I have them all ready for us. 4 cups of oil for frying, 3/4 cup of sugar, 2 packets of active dry yeast, 6 tablespoons of margarine or shortening. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but if you do use butter or dairy margarine, it will be a dairy recipe. If you use parve margarine or shortening, it will be a parve recipe, which you can eat with milk or meat, and also it can be converted into a vegan recipe. We have 2 eggs, obviously not vegan, but you can substitute vegan substitutes for eggs, such as aquafaba, applesauce, or tofu. You can go online to see how to do that. Confectioner's sugar, not a specific amount, just basically a lot of it. 5 cups of flour. Jelly or jam, I am using raspberry jam. 1/4 cup of lukewarm water, a teaspoon of salt, and 1.5 cups of lukewarm milk or soy milk. And if you are making this recipe parve, then you want to make sure that the soy milk includes a parve designation, meaning it'll either say parve or it won't say dairy. If it says dairy, even though there's probably nothing really milk in it, it is not, it is dairy, and you can't mix it with meat. So that is it for our ingredients, and now I will call my actual videographer down. So I'm just pausing the recording for a second, and I will be right with you. Okay, now that are we on?
I think so.
Okay. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, we're on.
Okay.
Should I reset that? Yeah, we're on.
Okay. Now that we have our ingredients, we are going to do the first step, which is sprinkling the yeast over the warm water. I have my 1/4 cup of warm water, and what I did to warm the water, I just put it in the microwave for about 20 seconds at 70% power. And now I'm taking the 2 packages of active yeast, and I'm going to sprinkle them over the water.
I have no idea if I started this one. I'm just showing like what it looks like in there.
That's fine. And thank you to my amazing assistant, Jordan Owens of the Hebrew School.
Oh, sword.
Who was carrying the sword, apparently in recognition of the Maccabees
No.
and their glorious victory
I just really like this.
over the Syrian Greeks. No, maybe not. Okay, so now we've completed the first step, sprinkling the yeast over the warm water, and now comes the exciting letting the mixture stand for 5 minutes or until foamy. So what I'm going to do now is pause this recording for 5 minutes, and I will be back with you shortly. Welcome back, everybody.
We had a small technical difficulty during the little break. We are back with video but no audio, so I am now dubbing the audio over the video. I will try to recreate what was missed. Unfortunately, I will be doing so solo. I've lost my videographer for the night. So it's just me solo. You're missing Jordan's beautiful, lovely commentary. So I apologize for that. Sorry, Jordan. It was a great contribution, your little input here and there. So we will miss you. As you can see, the water and yeast mixture looks much different than when we left it. It's a little foamy and in my mind, a little smelly, but that's the way bread smells, and apparently donut dough as well. I don't think that I made the water warm enough. Just make sure that you make your water 105 to 115 degrees. I think I would have gotten it to be a little foamier. Now the next step is to add the milk. That's 1.5 cups of milk. It should be lukewarm, and to get it lukewarm, what I did was I microwaved it for 15 seconds at a time at 70% power for 3 times. I did it 15 seconds in the microwave at 70% power, and then I mixed it, and then I took it out, I put it back in, and I repeated those steps for a total of 3 times. Next, we are adding the 3/4 cup of sugar. Putting that in. After that, we are going to be adding 1 teaspoon of salt, and as you can see in a moment, when I measure the salt, I make sure to measure it over the sink or over anything but the bowl, because in the past, sometimes I've measured these small amounts over the bowl that I'm working in, and you do not want an overly salted donut. That would not be a good flavor profile. So I am measuring it on the side. Oh, you actually can't see that, but you will see me, I think, in a second, top off the salt over the sink and then dump it into the bowl. No salty donuts, unless that's what you want. Next, we are going to be adding the 6 tablespoons of margarine or shortening. And what I did was I didn't use the margarine straight from the fridge. I left the margarine out on the counter for a little while to get soft. It makes it much easier to handle when baking. We are now adding 2 eggs. I just use large eggs. I don't know that it makes that much of a difference if you use large, extra large, but I generally just use the large or the extra large interchangeably. And of course, be very careful how you crack them. You do not want crunchy donuts. And then the last ingredient before we start mixing will be adding part, but not all, at least not all yet, of the flour. We're going to start with 2 cups of the flour. I have the flour right over there. I'm going to be measuring 2 cups. We are going to put 1 cup in at a time. And that's Jordan's fingers showing 2, indicating 2 cups. And now we are going to lift the heavy guns. I have the 500-year-old mixer. And we are going to mix it at a low speed for a few minutes. We're mixing it until the items in the bowl are fairly well mixed. And we are mixing and mixing, and right now, okay, not round out, Jordan is probably saying something adorable, so imagine that. Oh, and now she's taken over the heavy labor. That's it, I got my 10-year-old to do something incredible. This is another Hanukkah miracle, everybody, another Hanukkah miracle. And speaking of Hanukkah miracles, why are we making donuts? Jelly donuts, Sufganiyot for Chanukah. What does that have to do with Hanukkah? Nothing directly, but donuts are traditionally fried in oil. These days, people are concerned about oil, so we also can bake donuts. That would be a different class. But in this class, we are going to be frying the donuts. And for Hanukkah, it's traditional for us to eat items that are to bake and make items that are fried in oil, because the miracle of Hanukkah has to do to some extent with oil. After the Jews had their military victory headed by Judah and the Maccabees over the Syrian Greeks, and were able to rededicate the temple in 165 BCE, they wanted to light the menorah. That was something that was lit all the time, and in order to do so, they needed a special kind of oil. So now, and by the way, now I'm adding the remainder of the flour, as you can see, but I'm doing it a half a cup at a time. I'm putting a half a cup in, I'm mixing it, and once it's well mixed, then I'm putting the next half. So getting back to why we're making the Sufganiyot in the first place. So the Jews reclaimed the temple and wanted to rededicate the temple, and they wanted to light the menorah, but the Greeks had destroyed all the oil, the special oil that was used for the menorah, the candelabra, and the Jews were able to find one cad of oil, one container of oil that was enough to light the candles for one day. That in itself was a miracle, and it was going to take them another week to make more oil. And another miracle of Hanukkah is that this oil that was only enough for one day lasted 8 nights. So because of these oil-related miracles, we now, in recognition of this, in memory of this, we now, on Hanukkah, traditionally we will eat things fried in oil. So we're now making jelly donuts, but we also, some of us might have grown up eating latkes. Potato latkes is the traditional way, but we've modernized it somewhat, some of us, and now people make sweet potato latkes. There's lots of things that we can use with oil to celebrate the holiday, and you don't have to, it's just through tradition. It's not like lighting the candles, which is something you have to do, but it does make it fun, and jelly donuts and latkes, you can't go wrong. So this is why we're making the donuts today. Well, I'm making them today. Today's not Hanukkah, but hopefully you'll be watching this and then make them on Hanukkah or eat them on Hanukkah. And as you can see, my mixer that I'm using is about 100 years old. Not quite, but it is struggling. You can't hear the audio because it's being dubbed, but right now it's in its death throes. And Jordan is making some smart comments about why doesn't mommy buy a new mixer. Mommy does have a new mixer, but it's in a box in the basement and I didn't want to go get it. So we are struggling with our sad, dying mixer here, slowly turning. And Jordan says at this point, she's like, okay, Mom, stop with the mixer. It's time for us to knead this by hand. And I think this is where we let the mixer just die on us. Or we might be giving it a little bit more flour, but it is, you can see it's struggling. Oh, the death throes of a mixer right before Hanukkah, so sad. But I am able to get my 10-year-old to do work for me, so that is another Hanukkah miracle. And now we are going to be kneading it somewhat by hand. That is the next step here. We are going to be kneading the dough. So we've mixed all the ingredients for the dough. Pretty much the only thing left that we're going to be adding to this is the filling later on. So, but this is the dough. This is the actual sufganiyot. This is the donut to be formed. Now Jordan is kneading it. It is a disgusting process, and I'm happy I have somebody to do it for me because it feels really disgusting. I don't like it, but she loves it. It's like Play-Doh. She actually makes me give up this process when I am making these on my own, and takes over for me, so I don't mind it at all. She's kneading, and you do not have to knead by our standards because my 10-year-old will knead way more than she needs to. No pun intended there. She just likes the feel of the dough. So while Jordan is kneading, let's see if there's anything else we can talk about. Oh, you know what? Sufganiyot. I keep calling them Sufganiyot, but some of you might be thinking, what is a Sufganiyot? I know I said that they were jelly donuts, but Where does the name come from? Sufganiyot, the etymology of the word Sufganiyot, it's got its roots in the Talmud. There are Talmudic references to a spongy dough, and also in modern Hebrew, a sponge is a sfug. So Sufganiyot is related to that. It's a spongy dough, and definitely once you eat it and you see it and it's all oily, and you can just press on it and it kind of bounces back. So that is where we get the Sufganiyah word from. Sufganiyah is a singular and Sufganiyot is plural. And the recipe that we have here calls for filling it with jelly or jam, but you can really put anything in it. You can put any kind of cream you want, and you can Google and find all these different things that you can put inside the donut. And if you are a very basic person or want to go a more traditional but not necessarily Jewish route, you can go the Italian route and turn it into a zeppoli. This is very easy. I found out by accident. If you do not put any filling in it and just put some extra confectioner's sugar, voila, you now have a zeppoli. So this is actually a recipe for Sufganiyot and zeppolis. The zeppoli recipe is actually easier. It's just a Sufganiyah without any filling, and with lots of confectioner's sugar on the outside. Now Jordan, as you can see, is getting very into the kneading and Play-Doh-like process as we add the final amounts of the flour to the mixture. I think we are almost done here with the flour mixture. Oh, nope, there's a little bit more left. Hopefully that is the end. I do not recall. It was a very long night of donut making. That is definitely the end, because that was the flour bowl. So the flour bowl is empty, and Jordan is totally covered in dough, but I did make her wash her hands with soap and water, so we are all clean. Now, once she is done with this, the next part of the process is going to be another waiting process. We are going to have to let the dough rise. That's what the yeast does. It helps the dough rise, but it does need a lot of time. In order for the dough to rise, we need to put it in a warm place, a moist and warm place. And we need, for this process to work, the donut process, we need to let the dough double in size. And so what I will be doing is, once Jordan is done kneading, I will be taking the dough, distributing it into 2 bowls, because the place that I'm going to use to have the yeast rise is my microwave oven. I'll explain that in a second. And so what I did was, I put the dough into 2 bowls. I greased the bowls so that the dough, I greased it with just some oil. I use canola oil just so that the dough does not stick to the sides and is able to move freely when it's rising. Into two bowls, and then to two smaller bowls so that they can fit in my microwave. Obviously, if you have a big microwave, you don't have to do that. There are also other ways to other places that you can place the dough to rise, and I'll talk about that in a second, but this is what I did. I put it in what I did was, I took a cup of water and I microwaved it for 1 minute. I microwaved it for 2 minutes. The cup of water for 2 minutes, and then that created a warm and humid environment in my microwave, and then I immediately put the 2 bowls of the dough into the microwave, and I closed the door with the hot, steamy water in there, and I left it and I let it sit. I let it sit for about 35, 40 minutes, and then I checked in on it. At that point, the dough hadn't doubled in size. It got bigger, a lot bigger, but not quite doubled in size. So what I did was, I repeated the process. I took the dough out of the microwave, and the cup of water was already in there. I microwaved that water again for 2 minutes to recreate the hot and humid environment that I initially created. I put the dough back into the microwave. I closed it and I let it sit for another 10 or 15 minutes. When I opened the microwave again, the dough had risen. And you'll see that once we get to that. But I'm just trying to fill the space with talk because I don't remember what Jordan and I were talking about, even though she was adorable and had lots to contribute. Unfortunately, it was not Hanukkah related, or dough related, but she was contributing. And now this recipe does make a lot of donuts. Depending on how big you make your donuts, you can make them small or big. Now, if you make them smaller, obviously you'll make more donuts. The recipe says that it makes, it yields 40 donuts. That's if they're on the smaller size, I guess. And you may not need 40 donuts, especially now with social distancing. You can't really have a party with 25 people or 20 people. So what you can do if you have too much dough, if you have too many donuts, you can either give the extras away quickly, or what I did after making this batch, I came up with way too many donuts, is I put several in the freezer. I put them in chunk of the dough. That's not what it's called, but I have no idea what to call it. So that's what we're going with, chunk of dough, a piece of dough, a ball of dough, and she's rolling it out. It should be rolled out to about 1/2 inch of thickness. She is rolling out the dough with the roller, putting some flour on the roller and some flour on the surface so that the dough doesn't stick too much. She's going to flatten it out some and using her cute little hands, not so little, she's almost my height now, to roll out the dough to make our donuts. And you want them 1/2 inch, I'm used to rolling out sugar cookies and much thinner cookies and dough, but this one should be a little bit thicker than that. And let's see, we are about to get out, I think in this case is where we got out the ruler. We are looking for the ruler. We are rolling, we are inspecting. We are just evening out the dough some, and then we will start the cutting process. And my 10-year-old admiring her work and her beautiful flat surface. Now for the size and shape of the donuts, this is personal preference. Some people like smaller donuts, some people like larger donuts. What we are going to be doing next is cutting out the donuts into circles, the dough into circles that will be forming the donut shape. You can use I usually use, when I make circles for baking or cooking, I use glasses. If I want to make something small, I'll use a wine glass or a champagne flute. Bigger glass will make me a bigger circle. Here I am using a beer glass or soda glass. And so the circle is fairly decent size, not too big, not too small. You can easily make smaller sized donuts or larger sized donuts. It's just personal preference. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, the more dough you use, the fewer amount of donuts you will have. And there's Jordan. As you can see, she is trying to form the circles as close together as possible so that the leftover dough will not be overly worked. Once she's done with this little process, we will reform the dough into another little lump of dough and roll it out and repeat. And when you are doing this process and making the circles, it also helps to not just flour the surface and the rolling pin, but also flour whatever you're using to make the circles. You can also use a circle cutter if you want to order something from Bakery Supply Company or Michael's or some store like that, or in this case, the rim of the glass. That'll help the dough, keep the dough from sticking too much to the surface. And here is me showing you a cookie dough scooper, because we had the brilliant idea of not only making Sufganiyot in donut shapes, but also making little donut holes like the munchkins they sell at a famous donut shop. Unfortunately, as you will see shortly, they did not come out as planned. So this is what we would call a failed experiment. Do not try this at home. Do not follow this part of the video. Ignore, please ignore. What Jordan is doing here now is overworking the dough, which we did not realize till after the fact. And it is going to keep this cute little, what otherwise would be a cute little circle of dough from perfectly forming. And instead we will get a mangled piece of dough, which when fried is still delicious and looks a little bit like a diseased funnel cake that you would get at maybe Atlantic City or Great Adventure. Tastes delicious, but nothing you would really want to serve to company, so I had to eat them in solitude and will now have to run many miles. But she is diligently working trying to make those cute little munchkins. So sad, so sad. But that cookie scooper is great for forming other kinds of cookies like chocolate chip cookies. That is what I use it for. It does not work well for donuts apparently, so we'll not use it for that in the future. And there is my vat of oil. As you can see, while we were working on the donuts, on the dough, what I was doing was I've been heating up the oil. I have the camera pointed to the thermometer. The cooking temperature for this recipe is supposed to be 350 degrees, but I've made these donuts before. The recipe calls for 350. Having made them before and this time following the temperature instructions, last time not following, I think we did better not following the temperature instructions and going a little bit lower in the temperature. The 350 crisped the donuts, in my opinion, a little bit too quickly and made them brown a little too fast, but that is what the recipe calls for, 350. And this thermometer, by the way, you might not have one, or you may have one. If you have one, you may just have a meat thermometer that you used for Thanksgiving, which just passed. If you did, that is a great kind of thermometer to use, but if you did use it for meat, that would make it a meat thermometer. And since this recipe, at least the way I'm making it, is a dairy recipe, it might not be the best thing to use for a dairy recipe if you want to go keeping with the kosher theme. So what I've done is I went and ordered another thermometer. I like this one because, as you noticed, it had a little red marker on it. And this way, when you're making it, if you're making something, or whether it's meat, or in this case frying oil, and getting it to reach a certain temperature, you can set the temperature the desired temperature with the red little marker. This way you don't have to keep looking at the recipe and saying, wait, what's the desired temperature? I keep forgetting. You have it set, and then you just have a goal to reach, and once you get to that desired temperature, you can fry away. So I like that little thermometer, and by the way, I bought that thermometer on Amazon. Using Amazon Prime, so I'm going to do a tiny little plug for CBJ donations. And it's not actually a donation, it's just a fundraising tool. I don't know if anybody here uses Amazon Prime, but my guess is you do use Amazon. With Amazon Prime, what you do is you just go to, Amazon Smile. You just go to regular Amazon, and instead of going to regular Amazon, you go to Amazon Smile, and you plug in your same ID, your password, your name, and that is it. And you purchase, and you can assign a not-for-profit for a tiny portion of your sales to go to that not-for-profit. So if you spend $100, they get a little bit of that money goes to CBJ. It's not a lot of money, but it does add up. Now what I am doing here is I am transferring the donuts and the very, very sad munchkin holes to the fryer. I'm using a slotted spoon. You can use anything. You can use a spatula, but I use the slotted spoon. This way, when I'm putting them in and also taking them out, I don't have to worry about the oil dripping. When I'm putting them in, it's just easier. And when I'm taking them out, this way I let the oil drip a little bit out, away from the donut and through the slots. As you can see, I'm shaking out this slotted spoon a little bit on there. And just in a couple of seconds, you can see that the donuts are browning really quickly. So that's why I think that, for me at least, the 350 was a little bit too high of a temp. The next time I make these donuts, I'm going to go back to the temperature I used last time, which is about 275. But what you're supposed to do ideally is wait for them just to get golden brown, not too dark like they are right now, and then flip them over, and then take them out. Now, the one I'm taking out right now, that is a good color. And you briefly saw the sad, sad small circles. Those were the failed munchkins. We will not speak of them again unless they come up in the video. I don't remember if they do again. But they were sad but delicious. And what I've done is I prepared a pan with a paper towel to absorb some of the oil. Because even though oil is delicious, it is not really good for your heart or your health. So we're absorbing a tiny bit of the oil. The donuts are still not very good for you, but they are delicious. And then we are going to repeat the process. We are going to roll out some more dough, put some more of the already preformed circles and sad little munchkins into the oil. And it doesn't take very long for this process to play out. Once you've got the donuts formed, the oil heats them up very, very quickly, browns them quickly, and so you really have to keep an eye on the oil. This is not one of those things where you can walk away, make a phone call, and then say, "Oh my God, I forgot about my donuts." Those donuts will be gone if that happens. So you really need to keep an eye on the donuts. Stay close to the fryer. And turn them over in probably a minute or two, depending on how hot it is. And if you turn them over a little bit too soon and they're not really quite golden, all you have to do is then turn them right back after another minute or two so that other side gets a little bit more color. Oh, and I pan down to show you my boots, just to remind everybody that we are dealing with very, very hot oil, so it's dangerous. So to be careful, and because I am somewhat neurotic, before I make these donuts, I make sure that I'm wearing long sleeves and have my feet covered in boots, and of course long pants, so that in case oil splatters, I will be okay. And usually I wear oven mittens. Today, when I was doing this video, I was not wearing oven mittens, but usually when I'm dealing with oil like this, I will also wear oven mittens just as an extra layer of protection. I have not yet been burned, but I do not want to be. So it definitely pays to be safe. So as you can see, the donuts look beautiful, and then that small little round one at the end, it looks like some kind of gargoyle waiting to take off. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, I am sorry, is that the dough also needs a little bit of time to rise once you've rolled it out, and that will be in the written instructions. So I really hope you've read the written instructions besides just watching the video. And if not, my apologies, but hopefully you're not so far gone that you can't do this for the rest of it. Once you've rolled out the dough and you've cut out your circles, let them sit a little while. And you can see here I've done that, and they are larger, bigger in size than when we first cut out the circle sizes. So that's what we're panning in here to show you that. I may have said that earlier in the video when I originally made the video, but now of course I am dubbing over, so I can't remember the order of things when I was speaking. So I'm saying that now, and I'm sorry for forgetting to say that earlier. Now back into the fryer. Okay, and now I actually paused the video and I started it up again because I finished the rest of my donuts. And what I've done is I've taken 2 donuts to be exemplars to show you how we go about filling the donuts. What I have here is the raspberry jam that's going to go inside. I have a knife that I'm going to use to cut slits in the donuts so that I can inject the donuts with the jam. And I also have my injector syringe, which, I also have a paper bag, which is what I'm going to use to place the donuts in with the confectioner sugar to get it coated with the sugar. Now let's see, what am I showing you now? This is my syringe. I've already put the jam in the syringe, and the syringe, in case you're looking for something like this, it's not something that many of you probably have seen. I certainly had not seen it before. I actually bought it. The last time I made these was without a syringe. I just used a knife and a little decorating nub that was very messy and time consuming. The syringe definitely saved time. The syringe was something I ordered on Amazon Smile, again making a tiny donation to the temple while doing so without actually giving the temple any money directly. They just got a portion of my proceeds. This was a plastic cupcake filling injector set, and it was $13. So now I'm making these little slits, and then I'm putting the injector in and slowly depressing the nozzle or whatever it is with jelly, and then I will be slowly taking it out. And that is it for that one. Now I will be cutting another slit in this one, just a small little slit, enough for the injector tip to go in. And the injector came with 6 or 7 tips. I used the longest one because I wanted the jelly to get all the way in there. And as I was squeezing, I pulled out the injector so that more jelly can get inside the donut. So I'm pressing on the plunger, and while I pull out, but not with too much pressure, otherwise there'd be jelly everywhere. And next, I'm going to take my trusty paper bag, put the donuts in the bag, and you don't need to use a paper bag. This is just the method that I learned. Okay, there's my confectioner sugar. I'm just pouring a bunch in there, not any specific amount, just put a bunch. You can't really put too much in. And then I'm going to close the bag and just shake it up. This is the way I saw zeppelis being made when I was a kid. I'd go to an Italian restaurant. There was an Italian place that I used to go to when I was a kid, and my parents would get me zeppelis all the time there. We'd get 6 zeppelis. They'd throw them in a bag with a bunch of confectioner sugar. They'd shake them up, and they'd give us the bag, and we'd walk away very happy. And this is maybe a little bit over-sugared, but there's not really such a thing as over-sugar, so maybe it's not over-sugared. But that is what they look like. And once again, if you don't put jelly inside or you don't put any filling in there, then this just becomes essentially a zeppeli. So that is it. That is the end of our class. Thank you so much for joining. Sorry about the disjointed video / audio connection. Take care, be safe, and happy Hanukkah. Love, Tamar and Jordan.